Next up, we have Will Charnock of the NANOG board. I know a lot of people believe that, that NANOG was sort of dropped from heaven by the stork, and that's what we have here, but there's actually a structure for NANOG, a governance structure. The NANOG board is elected by the membership of NANOG, and then we have the executive director and the staff and some committees as well. But the NANOG board is the governing body of NANOG, and we do have elections this time around, so if you're a NANOG member, make sure that you vote, and make sure that you listen to our candidates who are going to be giving their statements. And without any further ado, I will walk over here and pass it off to Will.
You don't have to leave.
Please stay.
Yeah, this is not we'll get started. I want to.
If you wear it, it's yours.
So,
it's my election promise.
So my name is Will Charnock. I am on the board of directors for NANOG, and I'm going to be moderating this. I wanted to welcome you to the presentation of our candidates. I'm also on the election committee, so on behalf of the election committee, I want to welcome you. Dan, Betty, and I, we're all on the election committee, and so we'll get going. Next slide. Oh, is there a thing? There certainly is. Okay, so the format we're going to use is we're going to allow each candidate to make a brief introduction of 3 minutes. I'm going to actually ask 2 questions to get things rolling of each of the candidates. They'll have about a minute to respond each, and then we'll open up the mics. If you are a member, I would encourage you to vote. I can tell you, I've been on the board for a year. We take it very serious, the governance and the community needs very seriously, and so you should, as a member, take this just as seriously as we do, I believe. If you are not a member as of 12 noon on October 2nd, then you won't be eligible to vote. If you were a member at that point, you'll be fine. And voting opened officially this morning, so voting is open. All of the candidate bios are there. There's a pre-bundled set of questions. And then, again, I would encourage you to utilize the open mic time here once it opens up to ask any questions that you might have. And with that, we'll get going. We're going to go in alphabetical order. The 6 candidates for the board are listed here. 2 of them were unable to join us in person. I believe both were availed the opportunity. Both of the 2 that couldn't attend were given an opportunity to do via Skype, and we have one of them has we've been able to get on Skype. So we will again tackle this in alphabetical order. The one who's not here is Bill Manning, and I would suggest that you go ahead and read his bio on the election site. Okay, so Ryan, you can stay right there, and I think they're going to turn your mic on.
Can I pace? I have a pacer.
Yeah, you can stand if you want, or yeah, whatever.
I like to just walk around. You know, keeps the cameras off balance. All right, so my name's Ryan Donnelly. I currently serve as the treasurer of the NANOG board. And 2 years ago, I stood up here and I talked about the future, and I talked about hope, and I talked about what we as an organization wanted to be when we grew up. I talked about engaging parts of the community that we hadn't spoken to before, doing a better job of having outreach. I talked about developing a new generation of leaders to help guide this organization once some of us decide to go, I don't know, sail boats in the Caribbean or something, right? And I talked about making sure that NANOG was financially sound and able to weather any economic storms that might head our way, and probably will. Fast forward 2 years, well, I'd say we're doing pretty darn well, wouldn't you? I mean, if you look at it, you see that we've hired our first 2 employees ever, multiple actually, in the form of professional staff. We've reached out to new parts of the community through the education program and NANOG on the Road. We have held multiple record-breaking meetings in terms of attendance and revenue, and NANOG is now financially stronger than it has ever been in its history. And I want to spend a minute talking about why that is. You see, the board and the professional staff have a fantastic working relationship. And that is due in large part to the fact that the board within itself has trust and honesty and feedback in a cohesive vision, all the things that you would want in a friend, the board has within itself. And that helps drive a productive relationship with the professional staff, and in turn, in the end of the day, it drives value for you as a member. And these are accomplishments that I will be proud of until the day I die. So today I'd like to ask you for two things. The first is, when you cast your vote, don't just think about the individuals that you're voting for. Think about the entity, the board that you are creating, and how functional that board is going to be. Because at the end of the day, you, the members, are going to be the ones that have to live with that decision. The second thing that I would like to ask you for is your vote, not just for myself, but also for my two colleagues that are running for re-election, Dave Temkin and Jezebel Gilmore. Because at the end of the day, NANOG's future does and always has rested with you, the membership. Choose carefully. Thank you.
Okay, next is Jezebel Gilmore.
Well, I guess I will stand up too, and I won't pace in case I fell off the stage. I am Jezebel Gilmore, and I am also on the current board and with Dave and Ryan. I think the record in the last 2 years speaks for itself, that we've had a very strong board in leading NANOG. 2 years ago, I stood here asking friends and colleagues to elect me and help me to lead this organization into the future. We've spoke of education, financial stability, and outreach programs. We wanted to preserve the programming that you've always loved, the high quality programming, the separation between the program committee and all of the sponsorship models to keep the organization financially stable. And I think not only that we've kept that promise, but also we've delivered beyond expectation in the quality of the programming as well as the financial stability that the organization has achieved. As an individual, I have been in various aspects of the industry, from the service provider to the content side of the business. So I have an understanding of the different aspects and perspectives of the entire industry. And I feel like that I want to put myself in your shoes as a board member to see what your needs are and serve them for you. So I'd like to continue with that. We've developed a NANOG on the Road program, which I believe has been tremendously successful, not just to bring in new members and new attendees to the On the Road regional programs, but as an outreach to people who have never heard of NANOG, who don't have the resource to come to NANOG. So I'd like to continue with that effort. We've had some of the record attendance for NANOG in the last 2 years, and sometimes I wonder if the meeting's getting a little too big, but those are great problems to have, right? So, and I thank you for your support for the last 2 years, and I welcome your support for the next 2 years.
Okay, is Chris on the phone or on Skype? There he is. All right, Chris, you have 3 minutes starting now.
Awesome, thank you. First off, I want to apologize for not being there in person. I know in the past I've sat where you sit and seen folks come in over video and doubted commitment when people can't make it, when candidates can't make it to a meeting. I do want to say that I planned on being there and wish I could be there. It comes with more than a little bit of frustration and disappointment that I'm not there in Montreal. And that actually, my regrets go beyond the election itself. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. I believe that like many of you and like many of my colleagues who currently sit on the board, I've traveled around the world and gone to NOGs and NOFs and other gatherings of network engineers all around the globe. I've even gone to some IETFs and ICANNs and some local IGFs. And through all of that, NANOG stands out as kind of my home NOG. It's where my career is catalyzed. where many of my best relationships have been formed and where I see many of my best friends. It's where I've learned some of the things and met some of the people that have caused me to have any of the little bit of success I may have. And that, I think, all of that together hints at what makes NANOG great. It's more than an organization. It's not even just a mailing list or a meeting. It's really a community, and a community of some of the greatest people, greatest engineers that I've had the pleasure of meeting. I think that's where the strength lies. And I believe that the board sits as stewards of an organization that's there simply to facilitate that community, to facilitate the solving of problems, the building of relationships, and the sharing of information. I'd really like to continue to help out with that. Throughout my career, I've also tried to dedicate myself to helping this community and the community it serves. And so as you cast your ballot, I ask you to think of that community, but maybe more importantly, of the communities that it influences. NANOG being one of the first NOGs of at least its model has influenced and shaped network operator groups all over the world. And I think we should be cognizant of that and be cognizant of the folks that maybe aren't members, maybe aren't directly a part of our community, but either who should be or at least who can benefit from it. So we think of all of that as we cast our vote today. So I'd love to continue to help out. I'd love to sit on the board and help guide this great organization that's already had so much success, so we can all see successes again in the future. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Chris. Next we have David Meyer.
I'll just come over here. Okay, so I'm Dave Meyer. Many of you know me. I've been around NANOG for, I don't know, I think Dave Temkin asked today how many people were at 30 NANOGs, 40, I've been at 60. So I've been around a while. I've seen the community grow. I've seen it really go through its growing pains during the split from Merit. I was the PC chair during when that was going on, and that was really painful, and we had a really nice board, and we had Betty and a really nice professional staff supporting us. So I would like to have the opportunity to, oh, you know what, I just thought of something. Before I do this, the existing NANOG leadership is really spectacular, don't you think? I mean, you know, I'm so pleased by the way NANOG is coming along right now. So what are the things that I'm interested in doing? Well, I'm always interested in building community. I've been in the open source world a little bit over the, I mean, those of you who know me, I know I do all kinds of crazy different things, but I've been working in the open source world a little bit, and their community is very important, but we had it kind of in a way before. NANOG's always been a really tight-knit community, so that's a really important thing. And then the other thing that, I mean, there are many things there. Financial stability is a big concern for the board, but also sort of growth of the community. So growth of this community and sort of the youth movement, it's kind of strange for me to be saying that, but yeah. I think it's really important to get young people into NANOG, and I have to say that the current leadership has done a great job with that. So in any event, I'd like to be able to be part of that, and I appreciate your time and support. Thanks.
Thanks, David. And our last, oh, I skipped Bill Manning, didn't I? But he's not here.
He's not here.
Dave, go ahead.
Do you have something to say for him, or?
No.
Okay.
I'm like I said, if you want to read Bill's responses to the questionnaire, they're on the election website. Go ahead, Dave.
Thanks. And speaking of the election website, I suggest that everyone read the endorsements, not only of myself, but of the other candidates up here on the stage. You'll find a lot of substance there, people whom we've helped, people who over the past few years of our leadership have benefited from what we've done for NANOG. That said, I got up here 2 years ago and spoke about my desire to expand the ecosystem, to have more people involved in NANOG. And to that end, I championed the college immersion program. We have 22 students here today from 3 different universities. We actually expect the next meeting we could go up to 30, possibly more. These are students who are passionate about what we do and need to learn more, and we need to teach them. Because to Ryan's point, at some point, we're all going to want to go sailing in the Caribbean and just call it a day with this, but someone needs to come in. And you know what? We've had failures. We've certainly, for example, taken the education initiative And we've shelved it. You know why? Because we were teaching last year's technology. And it's time for us as an organization to embrace the change that's going on in the industry, bring that in, and then start teaching people that. The other thing that we've done is, as this organization has grown up and matured, we've outsourced things, right? There's certain things that, we're all engineers. We like getting our hands dirty and getting in there and doing stuff. But at the end of the day, by outsourcing what the development committee was doing, which is sponsorships and things like that, our sponsorship revenues are through the roof. They're 3 times what they were for meetings beforehand. And that's not even a direct factor of attendance. It's just that we're doing a better job of selling sponsorships. And guess what? It's not in this room, right? Where a program is still neutral, we stay out of it. We outsourced running of the network. There were a few bumps the last meeting. But you know what? At the end of the day, we have an SLA that guarantees us performance of the network in this room so that you guys can come here, know that you can do work and whatever you need to do on the network while you're here, still be productive, but also be able to take in all this great information. So in closing, the board as it stands today has done a phenomenal job of returning value to our members and to our attendees. And I think that we can continue to do that. I think we need to have discussions about diversity. We need more women in this industry. We need more minorities. We need the entire gamut, because at the same time as this group is highly productive, we could be doing more. And so I look forward to, over the coming years, showing you that that's possible. And with my colleagues, Ryan and Jezebel, I think that we can do an amazing job for all of our members. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Okay, so quickly, I'm going to ask each of the candidates 2 questions. I'll give them each an opportunity to respond. You get a minute. I'll cut you off if you use more than that. These might be semi-redundant to some of the election questions, but I think they're important ones to ask. So we'll go in the same order. Ryan, starting off. The question for the candidates is, what do you feel is the greatest challenge that NANOG faces as an organization over the next 3 years? And if you're re-elected to the board, what are the actions you would take to meet that challenge?
So,
Ryan.
Yeah, I'm waiting for my mic. There we go. All right, can you hear me? Yes, good. All right, perfect. So, perfectly honestly, I come at this from a very financial perspective just because I happen to be the treasurer, so I'm always thinking kind of in terms of dollars and the financial viability of the organization. So, obviously, the U.S. economy and the global economy always goes through bull and bear markets, and obviously at some point, the Dow is going to drop below 10,000, and NANOG's probably going to hurt for sponsors and hurt for attendees and hurt for money. So I think one of our greatest challenges is going to be using the stores of money that we've accumulated to weather that storm and make sure that the organization stays strong and viable through tumultuous economic times. So, what I plan to do to help assist that is continue to be very diligent in the way I manage our funds, continue to be very engaged in the management in collaboration with our professional staff about how we manage our money, and make sure that we're playing a long game here and that the organization will continue to remain viable and relevant throughout any real economic conditions.
Okay, thank you. I believe Jezebel, you're next.
Which is going to be our biggest challenge for the next 3 years? In my mind, I believe the biggest challenge is going to be the size of our community that's growing, and therefore the conference itself is growing tremendously. We used to be seeing attendance of 550 on average. Now we're seeing about 800 and to a point of 1,200. And I see that number continue to grow. And I believe that some of you may be feeling that we're losing a little bit of that intimacy of a smaller conference. So how can I see us addressing that? I don't know if that is a problem. Maybe we'll find different venues to support that. That would create a separate meeting space for people to see each other. But we're going to work on that, and your feedback will be welcome to all of us, so we can make that a solution and the best conference that you attend every year.
Okay, thanks, Jezebel. Chris Grundeman.
Thanks. I apologize. I brought in just after you asked the question, but it sounds like you asked what our greatest challenge will be over the next 3 years. And I think that really what NANOG will struggle or will face as a challenge is continuing to grow up as an organization and as a community, continuing to find new ways to add value back into the internet industry, into our community, and specifically to our members. I think that has financial implications, it has meeting size implications, it has services implications. I think NANOG on the road and the education stuff that kind of had a false start and is coming back in are both really important. And continuing to become more of a value-added organization without sliding down into the trade show territory.
Okay. Thanks. David?
Yeah. So I have kind of three things that I kind of think about. One is sort of the financial aspects of things. I agree with Ryan that there are business cycles, and we need to, as a community and as leadership, need to make sure that NANOG is financially stable. That'd be the first one. The second one is probably diversity and youth. We need better diversity, more women, et cetera, and I think that's a pretty imperative thing to do. And the final one would probably be, I mean there are others too, but there's final one would probably be around scaling. I also agree with Jezebel on the fact that, so the first NANOG I went to had 40 people or 30 people or something, and that was a different thing. And then today, while I was at the newcomers lunch, we really got the impact of the size. And so scaling NANOG gracefully and maintaining its character, I think, is a big challenge.
Okay. Thank you. Dave Temkin?
Sure. So I think that one of the biggest challenges that we're going to have is staying relevant. To my point about education, we need to ensure that we are not talking about, you know, it's obviously important. We're an operators group. We're not an architecture group. We're not writing standards. We don't want to be a standards body. The IATF does a great job of that, and the IATF has been reaching out more and more to operators. That said, we need to make sure that we're on the forefront of technologies that people are using. If we're still talking about conf-T router BGP AS number, 10 years from now, this room is going to be half the size that it is. At the same time, we need to make sure that we're not copying content from other conferences. We want to be relevant. We want to be fresh. And to Dave's point and my point about diversity, it's important that we've got diversity of age. We want young people that are still in school that are thinking about this stuff. You know what? Sometimes we laugh when someone gets up here and presents who comes from a university and has looked at some problem. We're like, oh, ha, ha, ha. There's no way that they could do that in the real world. However, the reality is they bring a fresh perspective. So I really think it's important that we bring in some new blood.
Okay. All right, and then second question I'll put to you again is, what do you feel is the single greatest quality that you bring as a candidate for the board? And we'll start with you, Mr. Donnelly.
I tend to be very collaborative in the way I deal with not just the other parts of the board, but also the different parts of NANOG, the membership, the professional staff, all of our vendors. I tend to reach out, and I tend to probably overshare when I shouldn't. And I think, you know, honestly, there's some reciprocity there. So there's, thanks, Patrick. That results sort of really, I think, in a high degree of engagement between the board and the staff. And it requires us to toe a line between micromanaging because we know so much about what's going on, but also it enables us to be strategic because we have good operational detail about what NANOG is up to. So, you know, in summary, being collaborative results in better communication, results in better value. So that's what I think I bring to the table.
Okay, great. Jezebel?
The value I bring to the board, I believe, is my communication skills. I have the ability to see from your perspective. When I speak to you, I listen. I want to understand what it is that you think that would make this community better and what we can do, and translate that into true objectives and action items to share with the management and the leadership of NANOG and make that a reality for you.
Thank you. Chris?
Yeah, I think one of the things I bring that may be possibly unique is a really global perspective and a real commitment to serving the community kind of unbiased and without any other organizational strains. My longest running, the hats I've worn the longest in this community are all volunteer hats, and I would like to continue that and continue to fight for this community and for the folks themselves.
Right. Mr. Meyer?
Okay, so, do I have it? Hello?
David Meyer?
Yeah, okay. So in my case, I think the best, or my value add for the board is kind of two things. One is I'm a good collaborator, but I'm also, everybody knows that I'm pretty much of an honest broker. I'm objective, and I treat people honestly and fairly. And you know, that was one of the reasons why I was elected as chair of the TSC of Open Daylight, because there's a big battle there of people who couldn't kind of get along. And so I think, not that we have that here, but I think one of the best qualities I have is that I can work together with people and help people work together.
All right, thanks. Dave Temkin.
I think most of my friends and colleagues can tell you, if I'm nothing, I'm brutally honest. Don't laugh. And so I tell it like it is. People come to me to, get my perspective without any of the BS that people like to sugarcoat stuff with. And at the end of the day, I feel that bringing that perspective to the board, being able to take what our members and attendees, their feedback, and process it and just discuss it without any of the veneer that gets applied from some of the over touchy political correctness, tends to be way more productive than spending a lot of time spinning around trying to not make someone upset because perhaps their opinion is not the same as yours.
Okay, great. Those were the two prepared questions. Thanks everyone for answering those. I'm going to open up the floor now for questions. Feel free to step up. Please tell us who you are, who you're with, I guess. Yes.
Michael Sinatra, ESNet. I just wanted to, I don't have a question for the candidates. I wanted to point something out about Bill Manning, and I might be speaking through two microphones at once. Sorry about that. Bill Manning couldn't come. He emailed the staff saying his wife went into emergency surgery this weekend. So that's why he's not here. I'm just throwing that out. It's just a piece of information. It's not because I don't think he should get a sympathy vote. I'm just saying, just keep that in mind, that he didn't just blow this off. So he is doing something else.
All right, thanks, Michael.
Hi, Steve Feldman, CBS Interactive, longtime graybeard community member, whatever. I have a question about the education program. Dave brought this up. So a question for all of the candidates. Is the education program worth resurrecting? If not, why? And if so, how will you make it happen?
Okay, we'll go in the same order.
Sure. So I think the education program makes a lot of sense as a philosophy and as an approach. I think there's probably a couple of different ways we can approach it. We've looked at things like, so Dave made a point about outsourcing and being quite good at that. So I think there are ways for us to leverage outside educational resources that may help us do the job a little bit better than we can basically do it on our own. I mean, we're a community of network engineers. Doesn't mean we're necessarily all skilled educators or skilled teachers. So I think if we bring in some outside resources that help us develop curriculum collaboratively, potentially we can, educate our community and help develop people, and also potentially help draw folks in from outside that wouldn't normally be part of the community by leveraging those outside resources. So I'd probably engage some partners and hopefully help us do our job a little bit better in that area.
All right, thanks, Ryan. Jezebel?
I believe that the education program is very important to this community, and I believe that we should pick it back up, not necessarily in-house, but in a collaboration manner with some of the research and education networks that we may be working with, and take their feedback, work with some of the education institutions that we're working with to take their support, and to take the community's feedback on what is the current set of knowledge that we should be teaching, the asset we'd like to bring into the community, and create programs to fit and tailored towards that. And I just want to add that the reason why that we shelved the educational program is not because we didn't think it was important. We wanted to make sure that we focused on our core competency on some of the projects we had on hand, which were the college immersion program, the NANOG on the road, and the transition from a previous facilitator for conferences to the current one.
All right, sorry, Jez.
Sorry.
Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, I can't disagree. I absolutely think the education program is worth resurrecting. I believe that, just anecdotally, anybody who has interns, I don't know if they have the same experience I have, but I have interns who are teaching about BGP when they're going to school for networking, which is interesting, and probably maybe a point of information on this. I think that educating our community and creating better engineers benefits all of us, and I think that we can absolutely pull that off. I think there are NOGs all over the world that were inspired by NANOG that maybe have surpassed us in this way. There's a lot of network operator group meetings that end up having more training and tutorials than they have conference time. I don't know that that's necessarily the length we need to go to, but I think it's a model that's worth looking at, and they have solutions there that are already tried and true that we can probably leverage.
Okay. Thanks, Chris. David?
I'm a big supporter of education, and I think the education program will be very important. If for no other reason, because Dave Squared, or the other Dave, said that, you know, our technology is changing so rapidly, we need to keep up with it. And I also agree that it would be a good idea to look at outsourcing opportunities, but also, and this came out pretty strongly at my newcomers table today, is that this room is filled with the world's leading experts on this topic. So making it easy for those people to interact with the people who want to learn is another thing we could do to make that happen.
Great, thanks. Dave Temkin?
Yep, so I touched on this before, but I absolutely think that education is imperative for us. I do feel that the way that we executed on it before, which was taking some really, really smart people and asking them to design a curriculum when they're not familiar with designing a curriculum, was not the right way to go about it. It was a good test, and it got us some great feedback. And I think we'll use that feedback to come back around and build an educational program that is valid, not only for people operating networks now, but people operating networks in the future. And whether that is outsourced or insourced or some combination of that, I think that's open. And I don't think, and to David's point, there are a lot of really smart people here, and it would be a shame to waste that knowledge. But at the same time, smart people aren't always the best teachers.
Okay.
Thanks. I just wanted to end with a comment. Jezebel reminded me of something. In a previous life, I was a software developer, and I used to go to Usenix conferences. And I remember Evie Nemeth and her, her staff at Colorado used to come out and teach classes there. And that was a wonderful thing. I'd love to see something like that happen again.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Any other questions for the candidates? Oh, sorry. Number one.
We're not getting it.
You guys turn mic 1 on over there? All right, she's going to switch mics.
Oh, this one makes noise. Hi, I'm Kathy Aronson. Like Dave, I've been to a lot of NANOGs and kind of was in the room when they named it NANOG. Anyway, I just heard recently that the best current operating practices documents are no longer something that the NANOG board or whatever thinks is important, and it's no longer on the agenda, and I'd like you guys to speak to that, because this is the community of operators, and I think it's important. Anyway.
Okay, thanks. We'll go in the same order. Ryan.
Sure. So BCOP is something that obviously, I mean, we all think it's important. And NANOG historically has operated under the guise where the board and the program committee are essentially two very separate entities, because the program committee has ultimate responsibility for designing a quality program. So if you look at what BCOP, could be at NANOG, it could be a track, it could be anything we really want it to be, as long as it's submitted through the same process we use to manage other elements of the NANOG program. So I think the desire to support BCOP is there. It just has to be supported in the context of what we do for all the other elements of the NANOG program.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. Jezebel?
I feel the same way, that BCOP is very important to our community, and a lot of people refer to that. But if the content isn't there, we need to make that spot available at the conference for something else. So if the BCOP content is available, there should be a track made available by the programming committee for that content.
Great, thanks. Chris?
Hi, thanks. Yeah, I think many of you may know that this is an issue near and dear to my heart, something I've been working on for 7 or 8 years now. And I agree that the NANOG track and having the program committee accept content is a great way to go. I also believe that the BCOP program itself, the effort itself, is much larger than just a 90-minute spot at a meeting 3 times a year. I believe that the website that supports the work and the mailing list that supports the work and perhaps even professional services are all extremely important to keep this moving forward and keep driving momentum and to keep building a program that really allows the experts in this room to share their information with the world, with each other and with folks beyond these walls. I think that a NANOG track and working that through the program committee makes a ton of sense. I also think that board and organizational support for a BCOP committee was a big step forward and that we've recently taken a huge step back.
Okay.
I'll just agree with what my colleagues have said, and I'll just add one other thing, that back when I was chair of the NANOG PC, we tried to start something that was like BCOP, but we couldn't get traction for it. And you know, that was too bad, because as I was looking out over the, you know, most of the NOGs that were existing at that time, right, Papercut, whatever, they all had what were essentially best current practice documents, and they were written by people who were actually implementing those best current practices and had experience with that, so they're very, very valuable. And so I think that, you know, we should be looking at this and finding a way to make it happen, like Jezebel said, through the standard processes.
Thanks, David. Dave?
So I fully agree that BCOP is an extremely important initiative. However, in order for it to be relevant, it needs to be global. The internet is global. It is not North America. And I think that North America needs to feed BCOP practices up into a global organization. The IETF has recently undertaken this, and I'm excited that NANOG will be able to support the North American viewpoint to the IETF operator community. From a NANOG perspective, we did have a BCOP community. We did have a BCOP effort. In no way did we ever say that you shouldn't have a BCOP track. We thought that was extremely valuable. However, it was very hard to find programming for that track, and it was very hard to get responses from people who were on that committee. And so frankly, the program committee was always open to programming that track, but it hasn't been brought to them. And we certainly look forward to supporting the global effort, but you know, that is a pivot from the way that we were supporting BCOP before.
Okay, thanks, Dave. So we're over time, but if there's any other questions, I think it might be worth taking them. We're just cutting into break time right now, so. Any other questions for the candidates? Okay, it doesn't look like it. I guess with that, we'll call it a session. Again, if you're a member, please go vote. It is important for the future governance of the group and the organization, and I thank the candidates for coming here and answering the questions.
Thanks, Phil.
Okay, so it's break time, and we are on break now until 3:15. After 3:15, we go on to the tracks. We have the DNS track and we have the data center track. In the two, actually, the data center track will be here in this room. The DNS track will be over in the breakout room. I think it's Joliet is the room it's in. Also, is Lee Metcalf here? Are you around, Lee? Because your wallet is in my hand right now. All right, thanks a lot, folks. Enjoy your break.